Rain misted the pavement outside Glimmer Tower, softening its edges but not its arrogance. The concierge barely glanced up. Everyone who entered here wore tailored suits and $1,000 shoes. Everyone who mattered. A woman stepped through the rotating glass doors. Her presence didn't announce itself with noise or glitter. Just calm, self-assured steps and a black dress cut with quiet power. She paused at the front desk. The receptionist blinked, then squinted. "Can I help you?" Her voice was sharp, suspicious, already defensive. The woman smiled gently. "I'm here to see Mr. Caro. 10 a.m. The receptionist let her eyes crawl over her. Dark skin, no visible brand names, no visible entitlement. Nothing about her fit. Not in this building. She didn't stand, didn't check the system. Just leaned back. "I think you're in the wrong place," she said. "This floor is for clients and executives only. Deliveries go through the service entrance on 5th. "No delivery," the woman replied. Still calm. Still poised. "You don't have an appointment," the receptionist snapped. "I do." The receptionist laughed, short and mean. "With who again?" "Caro." A pause. The receptionist finally clicked her mouse, then shook her head before the screen even loaded. "He's in a meeting." The woman didn't move. She didn't argue. She simply looked at the nameplate on the desk. Amber Lasky, Front Executive Liaison. "Thank you, Ms. Lasky," she said. "Have a good day." She turned and walked away. Past the polished elevator doors, back through the glass and into the rain. No visible reaction. No sign of offense. Just silence and distance. Amber rolled her eyes. They really do let anyone into Midtown these days. Behind her, the other receptionist stifled a cough. Said nothing. 10 floors up, in the boardroom, men in gray suits were reviewing acquisition terms. They had no idea the person they were waiting for had just been turned away by their own front desk. By 11, the whole tower would know. But for now, Amber scrolled through her phone. Posted something about morning struggle vibes and latte shortages. She felt good. Powerful. Like she belonged. Then came the tremor. It wasn't an earthquake. It was the kind of vibration that only money could summon. Low and deep, like the growl of a metal dragon. The sound of air displacement and machine force. The sound of rotors slicing the sky. Amber looked up as shadows flickered across the glass. A helicopter. Matte black. Sleek. Landing on the tower's private helipad. The building stilled. Emails pinged. One after another, executives froze. Palms slapped against unresponsive keycards. The Wi-Fi dropped. A senior VP tried to call down. His phone blinked and died. Amber stood, unsure. Her screen refreshed itself. Automatically. A blue banner stretched across the homepage of Glimmer and Hyde Consulting. Effective immediately. Full acquisition in process. All executive access terminated. New ownership by Vance Global Holdings. Amber read it twice. She looked toward the elevators. Ding. The doors slid open. The same woman stepped out, flanked by 2 aides and a security team in tailored gray. She walked like nothing had changed, but everything had. Amber's mouth opened. The woman walked past her. Didn't slow. Didn't glare. Didn't gloat. Just a quiet smile as she nodded once. "Good morning again, Ms. Lasky." Amber's voice caught. People poured out of conference rooms. Phones blinked blank. An assistant ran to the lobby, whispering, "She bought us, she bought the company." Someone else muttered, "Vance?" As in Vance Global. Another voice, "She was just down here." Amber's face drained of color. She reached for her tablet. Denied access. She tapped into her login portal. Password rejected. A message popped. "You no longer have access to this device. Please contact HR." She looked up in disbelief. Her mind scrambled for a narrative, anything to explain it. She remembered the soft tone. The way the woman had said her name. Not with anger, but certainty. As if she'd already known how the next chapter would unfold. Amber tried to follow, but the new security detail calmly stepped in. Lobby access only, one of them said. I work here. Correction, the woman called back over her shoulder, without even looking. You used to. No venom. No volume. Just finality. The rest of the floor erupted in whispers. Amber sank back behind her desk. What she'd dismissed as cheap simplicity was armor. The woman hadn't dressed down, she'd dressed strategically. What looked plain to Amber was precision. Confidence that didn't need validation. Authority that didn't beg for entry. Amber stared at the glass doors. The same ones the woman had passed through without resistance, only 20 minutes ago. She hadn't raised her voice. She hadn't insisted on recognition. She had simply walked away. And then, with quiet precision, returned to own everything. The lobby was no longer hers. It never had been. Amber was still staring at the login error on her tablet when the building lights flickered. Not enough to cause alarm, but just enough to unsettle. Phones buzzed across the floor, syncing with some unseen network command. A sudden pause overtook the entire lobby, then the thrum above grew louder, blades chopping through fog with military precision. Every head turned upward. From the rooftop helipad, a black helicopter marked only with a silver V on the tail kicked up a hurricane of wind. Executives leaned against floor-to-ceiling glass windows, mouths agape, ties whipping behind them. The receptionist's desk plant tipped over. Someone's papers scattered across the marble. No one had been told about a visitor. Not on this level. Not from that company. Amber stood, unsure whether to stay behind her desk or run. She settled on smoothing her blouse, attempting to regain some posture. Her throat was dry. Doors opened. 3 individuals stepped out first. Security, sleek and composed, black suits with matching silver pins. Then she came, same simple black dress, no makeup, no frills, no apology. Only presence. Calm and absolute. She didn't look angry. She looked like someone who had already calculated every variable and found it lacking. Employees backed away. A junior analyst dropped her coffee. Whispers began circulating like currency. Amber inhaled sharply and stepped forward, half raising her hand. "Ma'am, if you're—" The woman didn't even glance at her this time. Amber froze. Behind her, phones rang once, then stopped. All at once. The building's central monitors flicked from corporate logo to a white screen with a simple message. "Please report to the 5th floor auditorium immediately. Your presence is required. VGH Executive Office." Then came the vibration, everyone's phone buzzing with the same notification. Amber reached for hers. The app had logged her out. Her badge light blinked red. Above, several doors clicked as electronic locks disengaged, releasing sealed meeting rooms. Executives emerged in staggered steps, many pale, some sweating. One of the partners, Caro, marched into the lobby, shouting toward no one in particular. "What the hell is going on? Who authorized this? I need to speak with operations." A security guard intercepted him. "Please proceed to the 5th floor, sir. I'm not going anywhere until someone explains." "She's the one you were supposed to meet," another voice cut in, low and steady. Caro turned. His face dropped. She didn't say anything. Just met his eyes and held them. Not out of spite. Out of recognition. "You," he muttered. "You were downstairs." She nodded. "You didn't identify yourself." "No one asked." Her voice carried no malice. No venom. But it echoed louder than any shout. The crowd grew silent. She walked past Caro like he was furniture. Amber stepped aside this time without protest. Her eyes didn't meet Leona's. She couldn't risk it. The elevator opened again, this time with an assistant holding a tablet. "Ms. Vance, ready when you are." She nodded and stepped in. The doors closed. The lobby murmurs returned, but softer now, filled with questions no one had answers to. "She owns Vance Global? Why was she even here? She's our new boss? I think she owns the building." Caro cursed under his breath, then stormed to his office. Amber didn't move. Then the emails started coming. One by one. Subject: termination notification. Body: as part of the acquisition of Glimmer and Hyde Consulting, your position has been reviewed. This communication serves as formal notice of termination effective immediately. You will receive a severance package based on your tenure and legal entitlements. Do not attempt to access secure systems. Building access will be revoked within the hour. Thank you for your service. Vance Global HR Division. The building's digital infrastructure, once untouchable, now moved like a scalpel. Access revoked. Contracts shredded. IT cleared. Legal shields dissolved like sugar in boiling water. Amber's email refreshed, blank. Her login screen now showed a red banner, inactive account. Her hand shook. She looked around for support. No one made eye contact. A nearby marketing associate packed his things without a word. From the 5th floor, a live stream began. The screen in the lobby clicked on, revealing a stage. Leona stood at its center. No microphone. She didn't need one. I came here to evaluate an investment, she said plainly. But what I found instead was a monument to exclusion. A culture that confuses elitism with excellence. That rewards pedigree over principle. That mistakes arrogance for merit. Her voice was even, controlled. I asked to be let in. I was told to leave. She scanned the room. No rage. Just truth. So now I'm not asking. Gasps broke out across the building. She continued. Today marks the end of Glimmer and Hyde Consulting. Effective immediately, all existing leadership is dismissed. Department heads who wish to apply for new positions may do so under the guidelines of our Equity First restructuring program. Your track record here will be reviewed, including hiring practices, internal complaints, and diversity metrics. Amber's legs nearly gave. The building will remain closed to all previous contractors, vendors, and outsourced services pending review. No one had ever shut down an entire firm like this. Not in a single morning. Not with this precision. I did not come here to be seen, Leona said. I came to see. And what I saw was enough. Then the stream cut off. Amber blinked, looked at the silent phone in her hand, then at the vacant desk, then at the people gathering their things as if fleeing a collapsing empire. She wasn't fired with a scream. She wasn't humiliated with a spectacle. She was dismissed by the same quiet grace she had once sneered at. And the worst part? No one was coming to fix it. By the time employees reached the 5th floor auditorium, the tone had shifted from confusion to silent dread. A thick air of consequence filled the space. People no longer whispered. They waited. Rows of seats filled quickly, mostly with stunned former executives, department managers, legal counsel, people used to running things, now holding notebooks like schoolchildren summoned to the principal's office. A few lower-tier employees stood near the back, unsure if they were even supposed to be there. No one clarified. On the screen behind the stage, a simple phrase glowed. Ownership is not inherited. It's earned. Daily. Then she walked in. Alone. No entourage. No podium. Just her presence. They expected a power display. Instead, she gave them clarity. My name is Leona Vance, she began. CEO of Vance Global Holdings. I've acquired this firm, its assets, and this property. And as of this morning, I've also shut it down. No one moved. You were not removed because of a bad quarter, she said. You were removed because your culture is broken. Your systems reward exclusion, penalize difference, and ignore voices that don't match your own. Some fidgeted. Others looked down. I watched your hiring statistics, your promotions, your complaints buried in HR, unaddressed. I reviewed evaluations where talent was measured against dinner club compatibility. I read emails that judged women for tone, men for background, and dismissed candidates for not attending the right schools. A woman in the second row flinched. I saw how you treated people based on how they walked in, not what they brought in. A sharp breath from someone on the left side of the room. That receptionist didn't just turn me away. She confirmed your brand. She showed me everything I needed to know about your leadership culture in 15 seconds. Leona paused. The rot wasn't in one person. It was in what you all allowed. No accusations, just facts, balanced like an indictment delivered with surgical calm. I've had boardrooms ignore my voice. Contracts postponed because someone assumed I was the assistant. I've watched companies bleed billions because they confused comfort with competence. She scanned the room. The ones who had never listened now had no choice. This isn't revenge. It's responsibility. Silence. You built a culture where the poor are presumed lazy, the different are considered unqualified, and humility is seen as weakness. She stepped forward, closing the gap between her and the audience. You've turned buildings like this into castles, tall, gleaming, and impenetrable. But I'm not here to storm the gates. She looked directly at a senior partner whose expression had curdled into disdain. I own the gates now. And I'm taking them down. No one clapped. There was no applause line. Just stunned silence. This building will be repurposed starting tomorrow. The top 2 floors are being converted into emergency transitional housing. Temporary shelter for women and families displaced by eviction. The cafeteria will become a community kitchen. Conference rooms will serve as classrooms for job training, legal assistance, and financial literacy programs. The senior partner's jaw flexed. Leona didn't blink. People asked me why I didn't simply fire the receptionist. Why not make an example of her? But I'm not in the business of spectacle. I'm in the business of systems. What happened down there didn't begin with her. It began with you. A single cough broke the tension. Your severance will be honored, she continued. But if you're here wondering how this happened, look at your hiring panels, your closed-door decisions, your back-channel endorsements. You built this. I just called it what it is. She let the weight settle. I'm not interested in punishment. I'm interested in consequence. And consequence is not cruelty. It's clarity. One of the HR directors near the back started quietly crying. She didn't try to hide it. Leona's voice softened slightly. Not weak, still firm, but wrapped in something harder to name. Some of you will grow from this. Some of you won't. That part isn't up to me. But what happens next is. She looked at the younger employees near the back. The ones who had always walked on eggshells. The ones who had talent and ideas and resilience but no invitation to the table. The new company that replaces Glimmer and Hyde won't have legacy bias. It won't recruit by cocktail circle or social club. We will build something where resilience matters more than pedigree, and leadership is earned through empathy, not arrogance. People shifted. This wasn't theoretical anymore. This was real. If you want to be part of that, she said, you can apply. But know that your resume will not save you. Only your character will. A few raised their heads. Something flickered behind their eyes. Not fear. Not pride. Maybe, just maybe, hope. You have 48 hours to clear your desk. Severance packets will be emailed. Some of you will get invites. Others won't. Leona turned slightly, voice steady again. I was once told I didn't look like a CEO. That's true. I look like someone who worked twice as hard to be treated half as fairly. And that makes me more than a CEO. A pause. That makes me accountable. Then she nodded once and walked off stage. No music. No branding. Just truth. Delivered with the grace of someone who had nothing left to prove, and everything left to change. The next morning, the building looked completely different. Not physically. Its glass facade and mirrored elevators still gleamed in the sunrise, but spiritually. It no longer hummed with the cold, filtered efficiency of corporate ambition. Instead, it breathed. Volunteers arrived just after 6 a.m., rolling in cots, blankets, crates of food, and hygiene supplies. Trucks pulled up with signs, folding chairs, and mobile medical unit. What once was a place where only tailored suits could enter now welcomed children, grandmothers, veterans, single mothers, and those who had learned to disappear in plain sight. No one was turned away. No one asked where they'd been. Leona didn't hold a press conference. She didn't need cameras. The only announcement was action. By noon, the top floor, formerly a luxury executive suite with private bathrooms and glass conference tables, was full of voices. A woman with 2 children sat near the window, watching cartoons on a donated tablet. A man with cracked hands from years of factory work helped install curtains. The energy was communal, not desperate. Downstairs, Amber stood on the sidewalk. She wasn't alone. Former employees gathered silently across the street, staring at the building like it had betrayed them. But in truth, it had just finally revealed what it had never been for them: permanent. Amber hadn't slept. Not well. Something in her chest kept repeating yesterday like a looped track. She had thought about emailing, apologizing, even begging. But she knew it wasn't just about one moment. It was about years she had spent policing who was professional and who wasn't. Who belonged. Who didn't. Who she deferred to and who she ignored. She never realized she had been a gatekeeper until the door was slammed behind her. Inside, a young woman led an orientation for newly arrived guests. Her name tag read Cora Resource Navigator. She wasn't much older than Amber, but she moved with calm assurance. "Rooms upstairs are temporary," Cora explained. "We'll connect you with long-term housing. There are daily workshops, resume writing, mental health support, job placement. Nothing forced. We meet you where you are." Amber watched through the glass. She remembered when Cora had applied to Glimmer and Hyde. She had a community college degree, experience running youth programs, and glowing letters from nonprofits. Amber had flagged her resume. Not polished, she'd noted. Not a cultural fit. Now Cora was here, leading, trusted, thriving. Amber looked away. Elsewhere, a small press outlet ran a story titled, "Former Billionaire Buys Building, Turns It into Shelter," but there's more to the story. It detailed Leona's history. Raised by her grandmother, worked 3 jobs through college, launched a tech startup from a basement, sold it for millions, then vanished for 3 years. What few knew was that during those years, she studied not tech, but systems. Racism, classism, institutional access. She didn't want to just succeed in the world. She wanted to reshape it. Her next venture wasn't an app or a hedge fund. It was Vance Global Holdings, a company structured to acquire, dismantle, and rewire organizations built on legacy injustice. She bought what others called untouchable. Then she touched it with design, not destruction. Amber sat on a bus stop bench and stared at her hands. They looked the same, but felt foreign. She realized she had never asked herself who she had become. Just who she was trying to impress. She couldn't even name what she had lost. Because what she really lost wasn't a job, it was the illusion of superiority. The old company had fed her pride but starved her purpose. Inside, a small boy tugged on Cora's sleeve. "Miss Cora, do you have any books?" "We sure do," she smiled. "Come on, I'll show you the reading room." The boy followed, but not before glancing out the window and waving at Amber. His grin was toothy, crooked, real. Amber didn't wave back at first. Then she did. Slowly. Behind her, someone else approached. Ronald, a former team lead from IT. He sat down beside her, exhaling hard. "Couldn't stay away either?" he asked. Amber shook her head. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded printout. It was from Leona's new website. A job posting, Community Access Coordinator. Must demonstrate history of empathy-driven leadership, cultural awareness, and willingness to grow. Degrees optional. Character mandatory. Amber read it 3 times. "Are you applying?" she asked. Ronald shrugged. "Thinking about it. I spent 10 years fixing networks for people who never learned my name. Might be nice to fix something that matters." They sat in silence. "She remembered me," Amber finally said. "From the lobby." Ronald nodded. "Of course she did." Amber folded the paper again. Her hands were shaking less now. The noise in her chest softened. Across the street, a banner unfurled over the entrance. It read, "The Haven Initiative. Owned by the people, run by the community. Powered by Vance Global." A new receptionist stood behind the front desk. She wore jeans and a t-shirt. She smiled at every single person who entered. Not one was turned away. Amber stood. "I think I need to earn my way back in," she said. Ronald looked at her, surprised. She didn't explain. She didn't need to. There was nothing left to defend. Only something left to become. Applications poured in over the next 72 hours. Some were from former Glimmer and Hyde staff, eager to reinvent themselves. Many more were from community organizers, educators, returning citizens, and lifelong volunteers who had never set foot in a corporate office. Every applicant wrote essays, not resumes. Credentials weren't the focus, character was. Leona read them all. Each submission was evaluated by a mixed panel: activists, business strategists, formerly homeless individuals, and even youth representatives. Every voice had equal weight. This wasn't about power. It was about purpose. One application stood out. Not because it was impressive, but because it was honest. "My name is Amber Lane. I used to judge people from behind a desk. I thought I was doing my job. But I realize now I was upholding a system that made others feel small. I want to help rebuild something better, not to erase the past, but to grow from it." Leona didn't smile. She didn't frown. She simply circled Amber's name and wrote one word beside it: watch. Meanwhile, transformation accelerated inside the building. Classrooms filled with eager learners. Formerly incarcerated individuals learning financial literacy, single mothers mastering coding, veterans training in peer advocacy. Children painted murals in hallways where stock tickers once buzzed. The old hierarchy was gone. In its place, mentorship flourished. Cora mentored a former accountant who had been out of work for years. They built a program together called Second Ledger, teaching financial skills to those re-entering the workforce. An elder named Mr. Grant, once a janitor who'd seen too many doors shut, now led morning sessions on resilience and storytelling. His workshops packed the room. His favorite phrase? "What broke you isn't who you are. It's where you start again." No one asked for his resume. They just listened. Amber was invited back. Not hired, not guaranteed. Invited. She entered the building with a different posture. Shoulders low. Eyes clear. She sat in a group interview with people she once would have dismissed. This time, she listened more than she spoke. They gave her a trial role, community liaison trainee. No title, no power. Just responsibility. Her first task was simple but humbling: document stories. Interview every resident, volunteer, and staff member, then compile their narratives into a digital library. No editing. No filters. Just raw voices. She started with Shireen, a Syrian refugee and mother of 3. Shireen had been a chemical engineer before war upended her life. Now, she taught high school science to teenagers in the shelter. Amber asked, "Do you ever think about what you lost?" Shireen answered, "Yes. But I also think about what I get to build now. I couldn't say that when I was surviving. Now I can." Amber blinked hard. No words came. She kept going. Interview after interview, she heard stories of abuse, addiction, loss, but also of defiance, strength, and vision. She met a man who used to sleep outside the very building he now cleaned with pride each night. A young trans woman who was disowned at 16 and now ran peer support circles. A teenage boy who taught himself to read inside the Haven's library and now tutored others. Each story was a mirror, and Amber couldn't look away from her reflection in them. Weeks passed. The building no longer smelled of sterile boardrooms. It smelled of meals, fresh paint, and a strange new thing, hope. Leona watched everything. Not from above, but alongside. She sat in on classes, mopped floors when needed, helped unpack donated supplies. Her presence wasn't performative. It was participatory. One day, she pulled Amber aside. "You've grown," she said. Amber didn't deflect. She nodded. "Thank you for not writing me off." Leona studied her. "We don't write people off here. We write them in, if they're willing to pick up the pen." Amber asked, "Do you forgive me for how I treated you?" Leona's response was immediate. It was never about forgiveness. It was about responsibility. "You're holding yours now. That's what matters." Amber exhaled. She hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath for weeks. Then Leona added, "The receptionist's desk is empty. Not the one you remember. The new one." Amber didn't respond with words. She smiled. By the end of the month, the Haven Initiative had helped relocate 82 families into permanent housing, trained 47 people in digital skills, placed 39 in stable jobs, and provided meals for over 2,000 community members. And it was just the beginning. Word spread. Other buildings, other companies started reaching out. "Can you teach us how to do this?" they asked. Leona's answer was always the same: "We don't teach it. We live it." She launched a national mentorship program, pairing former corporate professionals with displaced workers not to train them, but to learn together. The program was called Mutual Ground. The first rule: both parties listen first, speak second. Amber became a full-time staff member. Not a leader by title, but by influence. People trusted her, not because she had changed overnight, but because she had stayed to change. She still remembered what it felt like to sit behind a desk and say, "You're not on the list." That memory never faded. But it fueled her now. Every decision she made began with the question, would this have helped me grow or shut me out? Her answer always shaped the action. Leona rarely gave speeches, but she did write one letter, published online, signed simply, "A CEO who got told to get lost." In it, she wrote, "Sometimes the best thing someone can say to you is, 'You don't belong here.' Because it forces you to ask, 'Where do I belong? What do I want to build? And what happens when I own not just the room, but the rules?'" She ended it with, "Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you leave standing." The Haven Initiative stood taller than any skyscraper. Because it wasn't built to intimidate. It was built to invite. And every day, more people walked through its doors, seeking not just shelter, but significance. The building had become more than a shelter, it was a movement. Across the city, people began referring to it as the Reset Tower. Not because it had a fancy nameplate or marketing campaign, but because it represented something that most people thought impossible: the reset of value. It redefined worth not by salary or status, but by contribution, truth, and heart. Journalists who came to cover the fall of Glimmer and Hyde left writing about something they hadn't expected: hope. They wrote profiles of elderly women rediscovering leadership in the kitchen, of teenagers becoming peer conflict mediators, of veterans starting micro-businesses under community mentorship. Every story carried the same undertone: dignity was being restored, and nobody had to earn it first. Meanwhile, Leona continued building quietly. Her strategy wasn't expansion for profit, but replication for impact. She sent small teams to cities with the same model: acquire abandoned or morally bankrupt spaces, repurpose them into inclusive ecosystems, let the community define the terms. The media didn't understand at first. Why destroy successful firms just to house people? Because they weren't successful by the right measure. The right measure, Leona often said, was how many lives you lifted when no one was watching. Her staff called it economic soul repair. Critics tried to dig into her past, her motivations, her finances. But the more they searched, the more they found no skeletons, only patterns of giving, reinvestment, accountability, and trust. Some labeled her radical. Others called her revolutionary. She called herself a custodian. Her only mission: clean up what others had let rot. Inside the Haven, change wasn't just visible, it was operational. A young man named Tariq, who once struggled with addiction and lived under a bridge, now led vocational training programs. His classes weren't lectures, they were laboratories for transformation. People didn't just learn trades, they discovered who they were when someone believed in them. An ex-CEO of another fallen firm visited one day, trying to understand Leona's model. He asked, "Where's the scalability? What's the monetization pathway?" Tarek looked at him and said, "We scale by saving people. We monetize by restoring futures. Your spreadsheet doesn't have a box for that." The CEO left without understanding. But he didn't forget the look in Tarek's eyes. Amber had grown into her new role with steady grace. She now curated a digital archive of every transformation inside the building. Not just success stories, but the stumbles too, the relapses, the rejections, the restarts. She believed truth was more powerful than polish. One night, as she was interviewing a young woman named Janelle, something shifted. Janelle had been fired from 3 jobs before coming to the Haven. She had anxiety attacks, struggled with communication, and carried the weight of a childhood filled with silence. Now, she was the lead coordinator for the kids' mentorship circle. She had found her voice by helping others find theirs. Amber asked, "How did you go from not trusting yourself to leading others?" Janelle replied, "Someone trusted me first. That changed everything." Amber paused. "Who?" "Leona," Janelle said. "She looked at me like I already mattered. Before I believed it myself." Amber closed her notebook. That line stayed with her. Late that week, Leona gathered the core team, not for a meeting, but a conversation. She explained that she would be stepping back. Not away, just back. The Haven was no longer hers. It belonged to the people. The idea wasn't to lead it forever. It was to plant it, water it, and then let it grow wild. She appointed a council made up of former residents, educators, and local advocate. Amber was named Director of Narrative Impact. Not for storytelling, for preserving the truth. After the announcement, someone asked, "So what's next for you?" Leona answered, "The same thing that was next for me the day I walked out of that lobby. Healing what power broke." And then, like she always did, she left without ceremony. The next morning, the Haven operated as if nothing had changed. Because it hadn't. The vision was now embedded in every floor tile, every voice, every act of kindness. The building no longer needed its founder to function. It lived on principle, not presence. Across the street, someone put up a chalkboard with a simple question: "What does power look like to you now?" Answers appeared by the hour. Power is asking someone their story before judging them. Power is being able to say, "I need help." Power is not being afraid to sit with someone else's pain. Amber added her own, "Power is what remains when pride is gone." Months passed. New cities reached out, seeking guidance to replicate the Haven's model. But they weren't given a blueprint. They were given a philosophy. Lead with love, operate with discipline, invest in dignity, and never weaponize success. Graduates of the Haven returned often, not because they needed help, but because they wanted to give it. Some brought baked goods. Others brought resumes to review. A few just came to sit in silence, knowing they had a place that welcomed them even when they had nothing to prove. On the 1-year anniversary, there was no ribbon cutting or gala. Instead, the Haven held an open mic night. Anyone could speak, sing, cry, or just listen. Amber took the stage for the first time. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. "I used to think leadership was about control," she said. "Now I know it's about care. I used to think legacy was what people said about you. Now I know it's what people carry forward because of you. I used to tell people they weren't on the list. Now I spend my life making sure there is no list." The room stood in silence. Then applause. Then tears. Then laughter. And in that room, with no suits, no scripts, no filters, the true measure of transformation revealed itself. It wasn't a number or a name. It was a feeling, a memory, a choice. To see people. To believe in them. To build with them, not over them. And to never, ever forget where you started. Not to feel shame, but to remember the road that taught you who you really are. Years later, the building still stood, though it had changed again. No longer called the Haven, it was now simply known as the Commons. It was no longer just a shelter, training center, or transitional space. It had evolved into something living, breathing, a cultural institution rooted not in elitism, but in empathy. Its walls bore murals of those who had walked through fire and came out illuminated. Its halls echoed with conversations, not commands. And its foundation was no longer concrete, it was community. Visitors from around the world came to learn. Not because of the design or technology, but because of the radical shift in values. There were no guided tours, no curated exhibit, just people offering time. That was the model. Show up, listen, serve, learn. Titles didn't matter. Your willingness to grow did. One evening, a group of executives arrived. CEOs from various tech, finance, and consulting firms. They expected a presentation. What they got instead was an invitation to sit in a circle with former clients of the old system. No microphones, no press, just a closed door and open truth. An elderly woman named Denise spoke first. She had once been denied a loan by one of their institutions due to zip code profiling. Now she managed the financial empowerment team at the Commons. She looked directly at the highest-ranking man in the room and said, "You're not here to fix us. You're here to fix what you normalized." There was no rebuttal, just silence, then nods. Another participant, a young ex-gang member turned peer mentor, added, "You want innovation? Start by dismantling the things you built to exclude us." The room did not argue. They listened, some for the first time in their entire careers. In another room, Amber prepared a digital exhibit launch titled What We Remember. It was an archive of testimonials from people whose lives had intersected with the project. The stories spanned failures, breakdowns, small triumphs, and massive rebounds. But more than that, it was a map of transformation, proof that change wasn't a miracle, it was a process. In the exhibit's opening note, Amber wrote, "Change didn't happen because a billionaire walked in. It happened because she walked out and let the rest of us walk in." That sentence became a mantra. Leona, now retired from active leadership, lived quietly in a modest home far from the city. She was often asked to speak, but rarely accepted. She preferred planting gardens, mentoring young women entrepreneurs, and visiting new commons centers springing up across other cities. One day, Amber visited her, holding a small envelope. Inside was a letter written by a 10-year-old girl named Zuri, who now lived in one of the upstairs family units. Her family had escaped a violent eviction. Now, Zuri had her own room, friends, and a volunteer role helping sort donated books. Her letter read, "Dear Miss CEO, thank you for losing your job so I could find my place. I want to be like you. Not famous, just kind. Love, Zuri." Leona read the note and let out a quiet breath. She didn't need plaques. She didn't want documentaries. She just wanted what Zuri had found, a future made possible by someone else's willingness to act. Meanwhile, the Commons launched its newest initiative, Legacy in Real Time. It wasn't a program, it was a promise. Every person who entered was offered two things immediately, a mentor and a mentee. No matter their age or status. Because here, growth was communal, and wisdom wasn't top-down. People who once felt invisible were now setting policy. Those who had been pushed to the edge were now building the center. Every Friday evening, the Commons hosted Circle Speak, a forum where stories, not statistics, led the conversation. It was both catharsis and course correction. During one session, a man who had once been a lobbyist for luxury real estate stood and shared how he used to profit off of housing scarcity. Now he was using his knowledge to develop sustainable cooperative housing unit. He said, "I can't undo what I did, but I can use what I learned to repair what I helped break." Applause wasn't given. It wasn't needed. Instead, someone else simply said, "Welcome home." That phrase became the unofficial slogan of the Commons. not a place to check in. A place to return to, grow within, and leave from stronger. Eventually, Amber was asked to speak at a global equity summit. Thousands would attend. It was the kind of invitation that would have once thrilled her for all the wrong reasons. But now, she hesitated. She didn't want to speak about the commons. She wanted to bring it with her. So she declined the keynote, and instead brought 12 people with her. A refugee mother. A formerly incarcerated artist. A teenage coder. A former bank manager turned food justice leader. Each took the stage in succession, telling their story. Together, they created a tapestry too complex to be distilled, yet too human to be ignored. The press tried to center Amber. She deflected. This wasn't built to spotlight one voice, she told them. It was built to amplify the chorus. As years passed, more communities replicated the model. Not by copying buildings, but by applying the values. Some in abandoned strip malls, others in church basements, schools, even parks. Wherever people gathered with intention and refused to let pain be final, the commons was reborn. Eventually, it became policy. Not by political force, but by undeniable result. Cities began funding dignity, not punishment. Businesses restructured hiring practices. Schools integrated emotional literacy. And housing was redefined as a human right, not a market trend. The old firm, Glimmer and Hide, was barely remembered. Its name was a footnote in the origin story of something far greater. What remained was not the downfall of a company, but the rise of a culture. In a final archived interview, Leona was asked, "Do you think they ever really understood what you were doing?" She smiled gently and replied, "It was never about being understood. It was about being unafraid to do what was necessary." And with that, the file closed. But the work continued. Because the truth is, movements don't end. They evolve. People carry them, pass them, protect them, transform them. And so, in a world that once told a black CEO to get lost, she built a map. Not to lead others to her, but to help them find themselves.